Whenever there's an urban rebellion against racial injustice or Palestinians take up arms to try to resist a genocidal state, people start talking about how important it is to be non-violent. Don't be violent, be like Gandhi, be like Martin Luther King. And I think people really overestimate how good and useful non-violence is, so I want to talk about two myths around this. The first is that you can't be violent because violence justifies state repression. The idea here is if you engage in violence, the state will just respond in equal measure and nothing will actually change. The truth of the matter is the state will engage in repression whenever it helps it get more power and guarantees profits for the capitalist class, whether you're violent or non-violent. Consider some of the worst forms of state violence that have occurred across history. Look at, for instance, like the Holocaust. The Holocaust didn't happen because Jewish people were violent. Pretty much 99% of them were non-violent. It happened because they were a convenient scapegoat and helped Nazi Germany to accumulate more power. Look at, even for instance, Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, non-violent, how great. Yeah, and in the South, they unleashed police dogs on him and his fellow demonstrators, right? And of course, Martin Luther King ended up being actually assassinated, right? So, the thing is, by being peaceful, you're not somehow going to avoid state repressions. The state will do what it wants regardless of the violence or non-violence that's occurring. The second myth, I think, is also around this idea that when we kind of look at history, we're looking at just key individuals, and it often feels like history is just a process of these individuals negotiating. So when we look at, for instance, the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King is often the one who gets all the credit for that. In the case of Indian independence, it ends up being Gandhi. And when we look at these examples, it might feel like because these people are peaceful, that's why they were able to get the results they wanted. The truth of the matter is, in addition to all these individuals, there were many other people who were, against nonviolence, who were perfectly fine with preaching violence as a means towards political ends. Of course, in India, unless you're Indian, you probably never heard of this person, Bhagat Singh, who endorsed, revolutionary action as a way to attain independence for India. And of course, in the American context, Malcolm X, his very famous speech, by any means necessary. And, maybe these weren't the people who were negotiating the ultimate results of what was going to happen, whether civil rights or Indian independence, but it was because of this major threat that those in power were more likely to negotiate with the so-called nonviolent people. It's because of that threat of a more radical form of action that change ultimately happened, even if it was just reformist or even if it was not the most radical version of what we would want. So there you go. Those are some myths around nonviolence. I hope you like this. Please like, share, and comment.